And welcome everybody to the very first episode of the 2023 regular season Pulse of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Song. I am joined by my co-host, Ron Caniff, and Chris Early, otherwise known as Duke. Gentlemen, Miami Dolphins football is finally here. We can actually talk about a game that's coming up, a game that counts. Are you guys excited?
Yes, excited for the season to start.
Absolutely.
Excited for the preseason to be over is another way Ron would put it, I think.
Yeah. Preseason's just terrible. It's terrible.
It's
not real football.
What was that, Duke?
I love preseason.
Why? Like what? It's not real football. It's just
I get to watch the Dolphins, and it's completely stress free. So
that's not. Why. Yeah, that's not the Dolphins.
He has a point though. It's stress free. You don't have to worry about the outcome at all.
Like that game they had, I think it was 2020 against the Bengals, where Reed Sennett had that fourth down throw to that tight end. I mean, none of these guys made the roster, but it was still exciting to watch because it was the Dolphins logo on a helmet. They're playing football, and I did not care who won or lost. I can go ahead and tell you with certainty, I will not be stress-free Sunday.
No, definitely not. Man, I don't know. Preseason's kind of like, you think you're going to this epic Tampa Bay strip club, and you get in there, and it's Roseanne Barr and Rosie O'Donnell or something on stage. That's what preseason's like for me, man. It's just terrible. It's just like you think it's going to be so good, and then you start watching it, and you're like, oh, I remember why the preseason sucks. So but I understand that some people like it. They enjoy it. I used to when I was like, I don't know, 15. I liked it, but after a while, it's just like, man, it's just a tease. I'm ready for the season.
You got quite the thank you. What an analogy there for.
Well, I wanted a good, solid analogy. Something that people could relate to.
Yeah, if old and wrinkled is what you're looking for, then yeah, Ron's got you covered. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll get into this. But before that, just want to make sure that we get this out the way. Always make sure you mention this, because if you guys need you get your wheels fixed up, you just got to go to You Brake Wheel Fix. You Brake Wheel Fix, the complete automotive wheel solution. If you've ever parked too close to the sidewalk curb, You Brake Wheel Fix specializes in the repair of damaged wheels from bends, cracks, or even curb rash. Or maybe your wheels they're faded or they're peeling, don't even bother replacing them. You Brake Wheel Fix can refinish them to like new. Offering complete refinish options through powder coating, machining, and polishing, You Brake Wheel Fix is the answer to all of your wheel needs. And if you're just looking to give your ride a new look, You Brake Wheel Fix also offers many car customizing options, such as new custom wheels and tires from your favorite brands, performance upgrades, window tinting, and suspension modifications. Located just south of Aventura, you can reach Mark and his staff at 305-748-0112 or online at youbrakewheelfix.com. They are really active on all social media platforms at You Brake Wheel Fix, so shoot them a DM on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter and get an estimate in just minutes. So don't delay, go to You Brake Wheel Fix and start customizing your ride to show off your Dolphins fandom today. And this show is also brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks.com. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues. Whether that's the NFL, which is finally coming back, the NBA, which will be back sooner than you think, and of course the MLB, which is currently ongoing. And there are plenty of other leagues for you to choose from. You can choose all of them from one league. You can choose all of them from different leagues. It's up to you to decide. All you have to do is choose whether your chosen player will get more or less than their projected stat. Right now, they have a free square available for Dak Prescott. So all he has to do is throw for 1 yard and you win that square. There's also special Taco Tuesday promos, which there is still one available for you to pick today if you want to go and check that out. And of course, there is the Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. That's when I take up that offer and I put in my $20 and I ended up actually winning $500 as a result. Thank you, Flex Friday. So with offers like that, it's hard to justify not signing up if you are any kind of a fantasy sports fan. So use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. Again, this promo code 5, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today.
Hey, all Louis.
Right. Yes, sir.
Did your fiance make you give her that $500?
It's still sitting in the PrizePicks account because.
Oh, is it? Yeah, okay. waiting for it to be transferred.
We will save that for a rainy day.
Okay, good idea. Good idea. You should just spend it, man.
Now, I will spend when the time is right. Believe me, we're being very careful about how we spend our money. In fact, she was the one telling me we got to be more careful about this stuff. Like, that doesn't mean turn off the AC unit, though. It's hot in here.
Buy yourself a Tua jersey, buddy.
No, I'm not buying anybody's jersey with anybody's name on it, because as soon as I buy the jersey, it's suddenly obsolete because the guy is gone.
Tua's jersey will never be obsolete as a Dolphin.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's correct.
I hope you're right, but I'm not holding my breath just yet. But in any case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get into it. Obviously, the Miami Dolphins are going to be facing off against the Los Angeles Chargers on this upcoming Sunday. And we all know what happened during the last one. I'm just going to go ahead and pull up the stats here. So this was Tua's stat line all the way back then: 10 for 28, 145 yards and a touchdown. Surprisingly, he did not throw any interceptions.
Probably his worst game as a pro.
Possibly his worst game ever as a pro, and quite frankly, definitely his worst game in 2022 for sure. Nobody really did anything worthwhile in the running game either. Jeff Wilson, 4 carries, 26 yards. Okay, great. 11 carries, 37 yards for Raheem Mostert. Tua actually ran for 28 yards. That's how you know. When Tua has to take off running on his own, that's how you know things are going wrong. But at least Tyreek Hill was doing some good stuff. Like, he was basically the only one who did anything in the passing game, in spite of the fact that he was not 100% in that game. And probably the biggest highlight for the Dolphins at that point was when Teron Armstead actually dove underneath that pile and was able to actually slap the ball over to Tyreek Hill, and he ran in for the touchdown. The only was it? No, it wasn't the only touchdown for the Dolphins that day. No, there were 2 touchdowns. But either way, we were just looking at that whole game and thinking, man, this was a disaster on all fronts.
Somehow we only lost by 6 points. I'm still trying to figure out how that happened.
Yeah, it was definitely a major contrast there. Just pulling up the Chargers numbers: 39 out of 51 for Justin Herbert, 367 yards. But yeah, Justin Herbert basically was the whole team. 6 catches, 116 yards from Mike Williams, 12 catches, 92 yards for Keenan Allen. The Josh Boyer's defense did not have a very good day that day, obviously. And
they kept him out of the end zone quite a bit, though. I mean, 23 points considering the offense couldn't even muster up maybe but 200 yards of offense. The Dolphins had the ball 21 minutes. So Josh Boyer's defense was on the field for 39 plus minutes in that game. So I got to be honest with you, they didn't do so terrible, especially considering that Justin Herbert's entire offense in that game and last year was like throwing the ball 2 and 3 yards to their receiver short and to Eckler, etc.
Oh yeah, and that's actually a name that I didn't even notice on there. Really, Austin Eckler.
He's the third. Go back to the list. He's the third on the receiving.
Okay, so yes, 8 catches, 59 yards for Austin Eckler. And but he didn't do much running the ball. 15 carries, 45 yards, only averaged 3 yards per carry. He did get that touchdown.
The team ran it well. Clearly Miami didn't, but that was one thing the Chargers really didn't do well against us, was run the ball. But most teams, when they would try the classic running game, meaning not have Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields, they didn't have much success running the ball against Miami last year.
That's a big thanks there to Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer, obviously, who, by the way, again, Christian Wilkins, 6 tackles, a sack. Oh, a sack. There's that precious word that everybody loves so much, just saying. But I'll just go ahead and I'll leave this here for now. So obviously, we're trying to avoid a repeat of last season. We really don't want to see that happen a second time. So Duke, I want to get your thoughts real quick. Like, when you were watching that game, is there anything that you can remember that you were really thinking, this is why everything is going wrong for Miami?
I don't know that I was thinking any one specific thing, but there's always a game every year, either with the Dolphins or with other teams, that I'm trying to forget some of these games, but they're just games that, and I'm not talking about when the Dolphins were really bad and they were playing a really good team or something. Just that you thought, hey, we've got a chance in this game. And then you get about halfway through the second quarter or maybe the start of the third quarter, and you're just like, the Dolphins have no chance. It doesn't matter if they even have the lead at that point. You just know that it's going to fall apart. And that was kind of how I was thinking that whole game. I was like, this is just not – it's not our night. So I don't know that there was anything in particular. I mean, obviously you can look at that stat line and you can blame Tua. And, I mean, he deserves some of that. But there are a lot more things to that, so I don't want to place it 100% on him. But yeah, it just wasn't their night. So it is what it is on that. I do want to point out that I don't think the stat line for Herbert was all that great.
No, not considering how many times he threw the ball.
Yeah, it's the same with Josh Allen in week 3. Threw for 400 yards. It sounds great on 63 attempts. So that's not great. And so that's
if Tua threw 63 attempts last year in any game, he'd have thrown for 700 yards.
Yeah. And so and there was one touchdown in there. So despite 367 yards on 51 attempts, there was one passing touchdown. That's inefficiency. And I'm all about efficiency. I don't care necessarily about raw stats. So if Tua's throwing 57 or 51 times, whatever it was, I expect to see more than one touchdown. I would expect to see at least 3 touchdowns in a performance like that. Yeah, that was my thought. It was just like halfway through the game, I'm like, yeah, this just isn't the game. I'm going to tap out and go to bed.
Yeah, I wish we had that opportunity because now now you're going to be doing post game, so you can't disappear on us. You have to suffer with the rest of us.
Yeah, I didn't have that option last year, so now I'll be fine with that. But if I come in here and I'm grouchy, you'll understand.
I can't wait to see Grouchy Duke. What does Grouchy Duke look like? What does Grouchy Duke sound like?
Well, I generally will try to compose my thoughts before. That's why I get off Twitter before. I used to tweet during games, and it got to be just reaction after reaction, and then I would go back. I've looked at my account before. I think I've sent in the 12 or so years since I've been on Twitter, I have tweeted out 27 to 28,000 tweets total. I have probably deleted about 5 times that many. So I just get to where I won't be on the game. I might be on a chat page or something with people that I will can correspond with, but I don't want to be in the masses because I tend to overreact to every little thing, even if it's good or bad. So I won't be overly grouchy. I'll be disappointed in a loss. I'm not expecting many of those this year. In fact, I'm expecting 20-0. Let's just go ahead and say it. Yeah, I don't like to. So I'll compose my thoughts before I come into the post game. But still be upset.
So now what I want to go ahead and do here is obviously Mike McDaniel has been talking recently with the media, talking about what it is that he's going to be looking at as they get ready to face off against the Chargers for their rematch. Some things have changed, obviously. No longer is it Josh Boyer, who's the defensive coordinator. Now it is actually Vic Fangio. And the last time that the Dolphins, well, not the Dolphins, the last time Vic Fangio faced off against the Chargers, it was a very different result. It was when Vic Fangio was the head coach of the Broncos. He was the head coach of the Broncos, right? I'm not misremembering that.
You are correct.
Like I'm suddenly second guessing everything because
he was the head coach of the
because the Broncos are like orange and they have some brown and they have some this and then you had the Bears who's also like very similarly colored and I'm like trying to remember which is which. But yes, okay, so he was the head coach of the Denver Broncos and they actually did beat the Los Angeles Chargers with Justin Herbert at quarterback. So good news on that front. But the other thing I want to bring up real quick is some of the things that Mike McDaniel has been talking about, because not only is Vic Fangio the defensive coordinator for the Miami Dolphins now, other things have changed in the sense that who was the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers last year? Can either of you tell me who that is?
Hill.
Who?
Ronaldo Hill.
Ronaldo Hill. Can any of you guys tell me who is the passing game coordinator / secondary coach for the Miami Dolphins this year?
No, you tell me. I don't remember.
Ronaldo Hill.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So we literally have the Chargers defensive coordinator from last season in our back pocket, who obviously, even if he is not the guy who came up with the game plan against Tua last season, at the very least, he was in the room. It was his job to execute it as the defensive coordinator. Now, I am not somebody who looks at a team and says, "Oh, well, Bill Belichick is the head coach, but he's a defensive coach, so he's basically the defensive coordinator too." The defensive coordinator doesn't do anything for the Patriots ever. I don't buy into that. I just don't. And so the same way that people are probably looking at Brandon Staley and saying, oh, he's the guy in charge of the defense. Ronaldo Hill's job was just to execute the game plan. I don't believe that. But even if you're somebody who does believe that, then you're looking at this and saying, well, Ronaldo Hill had a front seat at everything that Brandon Staley was planning out against Tua. So if there's anybody who knows the weak spots in the defense, if there's anybody who knows where the chinks in the armor are, if there's anybody who knows, okay, this is how you beat this particular scheme fit, because this guy's going to be here and this guy's going to be there, because this is what the game plan was last season. It will be very interesting to see if Brandon Staley comes up with an entirely new defensive coordinator job, just to an entirely different game plan, just to make sure that he doesn't go with the same plan he did last season. Because obviously Ronaldo Hill knows it. Because if they go with the old adage that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, then Tua's going to know exactly what to expect. He'll know where to avoid throwing the ball. He'll know what to look for. He'll know what to see. He'll know where Joey Bosa's coming off the edge. He'll know where Khalil Mack is going to be at any given moment. All of that stuff is all part of it. And this is the quote that Mike McDaniel put up here. So I'm just going to read this to you guys. So I'm going through the motions this week, he says jokingly. Obviously, we have Ronaldo Hill on staff, so I think he's quick to jump on the sword and say all of the bad ideas were his and all of the good ones were Brandon Staley's. Or maybe it's the opposite. Who knows? It's another connectivity spot that we have so many of them week by week in this league, but it was good information from last year. I thought they did a good job last year and excited for this year. So playing coy, obviously. There's not going to be any discussion about how, I'm absolutely going to just suck all the information out of Ronaldo Hill's head and use it to my advantage, because obviously that's just the way that sounds optically. It's poor gamesmanship. It's like, oh, we're stealing your playbook is basically what it sounds like if you were to put it that way. So he's very very careful about how he words it. But if we're being real about this, I firmly expect Ronaldo Hill to give a data dump on exactly everything that Brandon Staley had planned last season. So now here's the question that I would have for you guys. If you were Brandon Staley, would you go ahead and take the chance that Ronaldo Hill is going to dump the data and say, this is the game plan, and still go through with it anyway? Or would you try to come up with something entirely different to confuse Tua?
Well, I'll take this one. So if you were Miami's defensive coordinator and you were going into a game and you didn't have Javon Holland or Jalen Phillips, do you think your game plan would be different?
I'm sure that the game plan would be different. Are you suggesting that there were differences in last year's game?
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is last year they went into that game against Miami with no Joey Bosa or Derwin James, who they now have both those guys.
This is
true.
So
I want people to realize that right out of the gate. They probably didn't have their best two defensive players on the field last year, and they fucking destroyed us. And I got to be honest with you, I just don't know what we've done or added to that offense that changes that this year. Sorry to be that way. Sorry to bust the bubble right out of the beginning, right out of the gate. But I mean, they killed us, and they didn't have their two best defensive players on the field. And Mike McDaniel seemed incapable of figuring out how to, and they had Tua. This wasn't a situation like where it was our backup quarterback. Like every other time we had our backup quarterback, we couldn't do anything. I mean, it was a really bad scenario that they didn't have their two best defensive players, and we couldn't do crap. We could barely manage 200 yards of offense. Tua completed did he even complete 40%? I don't know. Do the math. Maybe 40% of the passes on there. I mean, obviously Miami has to come up with a different game plan. They need to be effective at the run game this time. They're going to have to run the ball, but I'm concerned about that. We're already playing musical chairs on the offensive line. I am in serious doubt that Teron Armstead's going to play. In serious doubt that he's going to play. He played last year, so that's a loss right there. I mean, they want to run the ball more, but now we're down Jeff Wilson. A-Chain's a little banged up. They tried all off season to grab a prize in the running back room and didn't get one. I mean, I just don't know. I don't feel good about this offense going into this game. I don't feel good about it at all. I mean, that's the honest truth.
So just to clarify something, because I want to touch on this real quick. Were you not the one just a few weeks ago messing with me over the fact that I was concerned that the offense would be taking a step back this season?
This is not the offense takes a step back. Freaking whack. This is not a concern about the offense takes a step back this year. This is not a this year situation. I feel good about the Dolphins this year. I feel good that our offense is going to get things going. I feel good about a lot of things and a lot of matchups and a lot of games.
But you're definitely afraid of the Chargers.
I hate this matchup in week 1. I hate it. I absolutely despise this matchup. I think the best chance we have is that perhaps Justin Herbert and that offense are rusty because they're implementing a brand new offense, and those guys, not one starter took a snap during preseason. I think so. There's going to be some rust. There's got to be. I would hope some rust for sure. But beyond that, I just don't feel good about. I don't feel good about this game and our offense versus their defense. Now, our defense versus their offense, I feel better about that. Right? I think that's what's going to keep it close. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, honestly. But I don't feel great about our offense versus their defense unless we can really somehow truly establish that run game. I think that's going to be the key for me is we have to establish the run game. And I think clueless wrong. See, yeah, I'm clueless because I tell you the truth. That the Chargers didn't have their best 2 damn defensive players against us last year and made mincemeat out of our offense. And we had Tua, we had Tyreek, we had Waddle. Now all of a sudden they're going to add those guys and we're gonna just slice them up. I don't think so. Sorry guys, I don't think so. I just don't see that happening. So sorry to be bust the bubble and be a truth teller today. I love the Dolphins. I love where this season's going to go. I think we're going to be good. I think we're going to be in the playoffs. I really wish we weren't playing these guys week 1. I just don't like the matchup. I just don't.
Duke, do you want to help Ron talk off the ledge, or are you like going off the cliff with him?
Well, back to your original question. I think it would be ridiculously arrogant of Brandon Staley to say, hey, it worked last year. We're just going to do it the same. He's going to throw in some new things. So if he keeps it exactly the same, then he's a terrible coach.
I mean, to Ron's point, they didn't have Bosa and Derwin James, so that by itself will probably mean there's going to be changes.
There. Yep.
Yeah, so there's going to be some new wrinkles. Now, he's expecting a data dump, however you want to say it, to from Ronaldo Hill. Where he's going to be effective is tendencies, because coaches, I don't care how creative you are, they tend to fall on tendencies in certain situations. So he's going to know, like, all right, well, Staley likes to kind of do these things in these situations. So it's going to help out a little bit. I mean, I agree with Ron in that it's going to be a tough matchup for the offense. I think that their offense is going to come out rusty because there is going to be some, I mean, that's just typical with a new offensive coordinator. You've seen it every year in the league. There's generally some kind of, something gets held back. I think we kind of got our expectations a little bit off kilter last year because of the Baltimore game, in which Tua just went off in the second half and put up all these numbers. But if you look at the first game, they scored one offensive touchdown. The second game, third game, 2 offensive touchdowns. So it took a little while for the Dolphins offense to gel, and I think that's going to happen with the Chargers as well. I mean, there's going to be some timing issues. There's going to be some tendency issues. And Justin Herbert, I'm not, I've said it before, and I'm not a big fan necessarily of Herbert, but he's a good enough quarterback that he can overcome some things. So, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Staley is a disciple of Vic Fangio. So
I can look that up for you.
I think he is. So if that's the case, then what Tua has seen all offseason is going to be shades of what the Chargers can throw at him.
I think, just to interrupt for a second, I think what Tua has seen all offseason against our defense is going to help him immensely throughout the year and in his career, because right now the trend is towards the Fangio style of defense.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good that he's been seeing that and facing that, because he's going to see and face that throughout the year quite a bit. A lot of that defensive style versus what Boyer slash Bill Belichick slash
Brian
Flores is going to do. And that's starting to kind of go away a little bit more.
I would like to just briefly, before you go up, Vic Fangio did in fact hire Brandon Staley back when he was in Chicago, and then brought him to Denver as well. So yes, okay. Brandon Staley and is a Vic Fangio protege.
Okay, so there's going to be some overlap there that the offense is going to see. So I think it just ultimately boils down to execution. I think we're going to see more commitment to the run game. And I don't want to bury the lead a little too much here, but I think with some new additions to the offensive line, we're going to see more movement in the run game. And I'm a big fan of Chris Brooks. He's the second healthy running back on the roster. I know that A-Chain and Ahmed came back to practice, so they will be good to go. But I think with Brooks being healthy and Mostert being healthy, you lean on those guys, especially a 230-pound hammer.
Mostert's up to 250. At least he says he's up to 215 now, which is good. Hopefully that'll help him take a bit more abuse, maybe.
Now, I will be perfectly honest. I watched him last year, and I was completely surprised at how angry he ran. He ran very hard. If you look at some of those, I think the Buffalo game in Buffalo, that one big run he had, it's like he's breaking tackles. That's not what you expected from that guy. And so the big question with him is, he's never really put together a full season. So if he can do it again, I expect big things from him. But, I mean, I'm with Ron in the sense of they're going to throw some new stuff at us. They're a good defense. They're not an easy out. I think that where Miami has an advantage, number one, is it's the first game of the season. So you lose some of that having to. This is the longest road game they have that would be a disadvantage to them. Obviously, the Europe game is a long road trip, but at the same time, the Chiefs are having to travel the same distance. So it's not that big of a disadvantage, whereas this is. But it's the first game of the year. You're getting it out of the way. You've got some newness in their offense. It's going to be exploitable, I believe. And I think Miami has enough talent on the offense that they can spring enough big plays that could be a game breaker. So I think we have some things going for us, but it's not going to be, as much as we want to see it, it's not going to be a shellacking by Miami. It's going to be a very close, hard-fought game. And, but yeah, I agree with Ron. It's going to be a difficult matchup for our offense.
So here's the reason why I'm disagreeing with the both of you on this, because while I don't expect the Dolphins to run roughshod, I think that's very arrogant of me to assume that, the Dolphins are just so good that they'll just absolutely crap on whoever they faced. I would love if that was the case. Whenever I play Madden, I'm always like winning games like 100-something to 0, but that's just because it's a video game. It doesn't really exist. But with the Dolphins situation, there are several factors that I'm looking into. Number one, this is to a second year in this offense. So he's already gotten plenty of experience. He's learned a lot. He's obviously faced this defense already. And as Duke pointed out, that go away.
Hey, you know what? You can take some abuse too, man. I'm getting called a weirdo in here. All kinds of stuff going on there.
Yeah, but
you can take a random one from a friend.
Okay, sure. Okay, whatever.
Friend of the show there.
Fine, whatever.
Matthias.
Okay. Anyway, So yeah, it's year 2 for Tua in this offense, and for everybody else. I should also mention Tyreek is having year 2, Jalen Waddle's year 2, how many years do you consider Raheem Mostert if we're going to say that it's very similar to San Francisco? Do you want to say it's like year 4 for Raheem Mostert? But whatever, it's fine. So either way, I'm looking at it from the perspective of everybody's more experienced. Everybody knows what they're doing. So for the first time in Tua's entire NFL career, we're not just completely flipping the script on what his offense is supposed to be. It's exactly the same offense with maybe some few new wrinkles thrown in here and there, but it's basically the same premise, which is a major boost because just like you pointed out, Ron, there's probably going to be rust in Justin Herbert's case because it is a brand new offense. He has not had any practice with it. So we're expecting Justin Herbert to not just go out there and just start lighting everybody up right out the gate.
I did some digging. If I could interrupt for a second, I did some digging since he didn't play any preseason. I tried to do some digging into Justin Herbert's off season or more like in practice or in I think they had one joint practice against the Saints, and the best I could dig up was that this team seems to have an extremely new commitment, like an extreme new commitment to running the ball. Kind of sound familiar, right? Like Miami. So I think you're going to see two offenses really, 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 really trying to establish the run against two good run defenses. So I think that's going to lend itself to low scoring anyway in itself. But I didn't see much about like Herbert was really grasping it. He was really getting it. He was lighting up his defense. He definitely didn't light up the Saints defense. Now they ran all roughshod over the Saints in the joint practice, which is interesting because the Saints have a really good defense. But, I couldn't find much. I'm really surprised that they didn't put Herbert in at least for a few series. Considering now, I didn't follow every single report of every single practice like I did with Miami. So if you're a Chargers fan, I'm sure there's no Chargers fans watching this, but if a Charger fan happens to see this because they're curious, hey, what are the Dolphins guys saying about this game? Bet you they think they're going to kill us, haha. And you're seeing this and I'm wrong. Well, then that's good. Maybe that's for you guys. Maybe that's the reason that they didn't play Justin Herbert any during the preseason. But I just didn't see much where it really looked like he had a great grasp of this offense. Mind you, though, Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator, who got fired for having the number one offense in the NFL, talk about a scapegoat, right? Should have fired their head coach is what Dallas should have done. But anyway, I mean, he managed to get the number one offense with Dak Prescott, who does nothing but throw interceptions all day long. So, I mean, it's not like it's not like Kellen Moore is a bad offensive coordinator. So it should be interesting to see how quickly Herbert gets going on this offense. But we saw last year when Tua had to grasp a new offense, he didn't get it right away, right? It took till really to see him really get a hold of it.
It took until the fourth quarter against the Baltimore Ravens.
The fourth quarter against the Baltimore Ravens before he was like, okay, I got this crap. But that was more of a confidence thing. I don't know that Herbert suffers in confidence. I don't know enough about Justin Herbert, honestly, to know either way. So it should be interesting there. I predict like Chris, just extremely kind of ugly slugfest, low scoring game. Now watch, it'll be 44-42. Miami or something like that. Slugfest. Yeah, it still would be a slugfest, but the other variety.
I mean,
but I kind of expect it to just be kind of ugly offensively on both sides for different reasons.
Well, if you look at last season, aside from the Baltimore game, the Patriots game, they scored 20 total points. One of those was a defensive touchdown. They scored 21 points against the Bills. The Bengals, Jets, Vikings game doesn't really count. Although the offense moved down the field pretty quickly, and then the running back, I can't remember his name now, dropped that pass in the end zone. But then you have the Steelers game where he came back, scored 16 points, and then after that, 31 against the Lions, 35 against the Bears, 39 against the Browns, 30 against the Texans. Then they hit the 49ers, which is a little bit different beast, but you started to see the offense click. It was about mid-season. So that's typically what you see. Thank you. That's typically what you see with new offensive coordinators. is there's usually this time of feeling each other out early in the season. It may take 4 or 5 games for the offense to really get going, to where it's moving at a to where the gears are greased up enough that you see what you're wanting to see from them. You might have an outlier game where you score a bunch of points for some reason, but it's generally, it takes a little bit of time, and it's going to, he's throwing to at least one new receiver. I think 2 new receivers, actually. They got 2 rookies on the roster. So yeah, there's going to be a little bit of a feeling out process. And unfortunately for them, you're doing it against guys like X, against Kohu, against Javon Holland, a defensive front that's very, very stout. Now, you could say the same for Miami's defense, that there's going to be some feeling out of the defense with a new coordinator.
For sure.
However, I think that on the defensive side, you tend to – it's a little bit different, just because I don't think there's any defense that these guys – that Fangio is going to throw at them that they haven't seen at least something.
I don't know. According to Fangio, he's got
He
some
might- he
brand
said
new defense that no one's ever seen. I don't know if he
come up with some new
unveils it
wrinkles,
now, but
I mean, he's going to call certain things. He's going to have tendencies to call certain things. There's no way that Javon Holland and X and these guys haven't seen some variation of this at some point in their careers. It's the same thing when they ask offensive linemen, well, how do you feel about this new zone blocking scheme versus the old thing? I'm like, well, this guy's been an offensive lineman probably since high school. He's seen it all, right? They've not – it's like, oh, well, I was just strictly a gap offensive lineman. Now I'm in a zone. I don't know what I'm doing. They've seen it all. They know the stuff. It's a matter of getting everything kind of worked out. So it has the potential to be an awkward game all the way around for everybody. So, I mean – I like Miami's chances as good as anybody else, just because they have the talent on the offense and on the defense to make this a very good game.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and continue with my reasoning for why I'm not all that worried about it. Yeah, I already talked about year 2 in the offense for Tua, so that makes a big difference. He's not going to be rusty. Justin Herbert probably will be. Obviously, again, Vic Fangio is the defensive coordinator now, and the last time Fangio faced off against Herbert, he actually beat Justin Herbert. And not that I'm saying it's a 1-to-1 transition, but I am saying, though, that if I had to choose between Vic Fangio's Broncos versus Mike McDaniel's Dolphins with Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator, if I had to choose who has more talent on that team, I'm absolutely choosing these Dolphins, because I don't think that Vic Fangio's Broncos had the likes of Javon Holland and Xavier Howard and a young up-and-comer like Kader Kohu, which, by the way, Jalen Ramsey is on deck to eventually pair up with during this season. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, who actually probably was in Denver with him, so worth noting there.
He was. Yeah.
So Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins, making sure that all that stuff. It looks like we did actually get a Chargers fan in the chat room down there. So you were asking, Ron. So I'm for the record,
shall answer. Why? I don't know why a Chargers fan would be watching this show.
Because there's Dolphins priming for rematch with Chargers in the title. So for the record, Chargers fan, I am the only one here who's really super duper optimistic about this Dolphins game. My other 2 panelists are a little concerned, shall we say. So this is not a complete Dolphins love fest here. But in any case, the reason I'm not worried about it is because, again, I feel like the Dolphins are going to be honestly at their healthiest this game. So Teron Armstead, I am hoping that he'll be available. So are the Chargers. Yes. So we're going to be facing off against their strongest, and it'll be a fair match the whole way through. So I'm very eager to see what's going to happen. Obviously, again, Ronaldo Hill is going to give some information. And like you mentioned, Tua has seen this defense before. If we're going to talk about Brandon Staley as coming up with something new to stop Tua, which I'm sure he's probably going to come up with some new wrinkles, but if he is a Vic Fangio protege, we've already established that he's worked with Vic Fangio a long time. Vic Fangio dragged him along with him for a while. And then Brandon Staley became the head coach for the Chargers. And he probably did some variation of the Vic Fangio defense and said, this is going to be my defense now. I'm basing it off of this, but this is my version of it. Okay, that's fine, but you still have a base to go off of. And we have the guy who helped Brandon Staley become who he is today as our defensive coordinator. So if there's anybody out there who can best prep Tua for what he's going to be facing against Brandon Staley, it is our defensive coordinator and our defense. Because in many cases, if you want to say who's better between Joey Bosa and Jalen Phillips, I would probably
Joey
have to say
Bosa.
in a vacuum.
That's not a probably. Joey Bosa is better than Jalen Phillips as of right now. Jalen Phillips could still, explode this year, and maybe he makes a case for it. But right now, you sound silly if you don't say Joey Bosa is better.
I was gonna say Joey Bosa. I wasn't gonna say
Derwin James is better than Javon Holland. No, sorry. Let's not be silly now.
No.
I mean, they have
like Bosa and Phillips.
All four are fantastic players, but Bosa and Derwin James are like.
I don't know about Derwin James over Javon Holland.
Javon Holland plays a different type of role than what I think Derwin James plays.
That's very fair too, Chris.
So I don't think you can compare what they do in a vacuum. I think Derwin James is more versatile. I think he's bigger than Javon Holland. So
bigger, yes.
So I don't think you can compare the two to say, well, this guy's better at one thing than another. I think they're asked to do different things. So, I mean, obviously, Bosa's the better player. Derwin James is a proven player. So there's a lot of potential on the Dolphins.
I mean, wait. But Javon Holland isn't proven at this point?
He isn't. Dolphins fans put Javon Holland up here, right? I want to be at the top of the screen here. I would be like this, but you can't see my hand. Up here. But his play's been more like here, right? Well, we're waiting for that gap to come. Expecting that. Jalen Phillips the same way, although we saw towards the second half of the season, we saw Jalen Phillips start to kind of catch up to where we think he should or is. Javon Holland hasn't quite done that yet.
And because he has to play secondary all by himself in 2022, bro. That's
no doubt. Hey, there's reasons. I'm not saying there's not reasons. I'm just giving you the information.
And if you go back and look at what was that ESPN did, the top like 10 players or whatever at each position, and Javon Holland was voted, I think, 8th.
Yes.
And this was by coaches, players, GMs, whatever else. So, I mean, the league views him very highly. So it's just Derwin James has been an all-pro, Pro Bowler, and Javon Holland hasn't done that. Now, if you said ask them to do the same things, I think Derwin James is going to do what Javon Holland does better than Javon Holland would do what Derwin James would do overall. And I want to hit on the point about Herbert being rusty that was in the comments. I don't think rusty is the right term. That would seem to indicate time off. I think the term I would use is just kind of working out the kinks of a new offense. And what that might look like would be maybe there's a 3rd and 8 play and they've got a play called and the receiver runs something a little differently than what is being expected, and it ends up being an incompletion versus a completed catch. So that's the kind of stuff you see when you bring in a new offensive coordinator. There's just things that have to be worked out that just simply cannot be done in the amount of practice time. And that's one of the things that I remember when they did the CBA back in 2011 that a lot of coaches were kind of upset about was the players, all voted for less practice time. And, you've heard stories about, Shula and the two-a-days. And it seemed like years ago, there was just tons of practices and you don't see that anymore. So you've basically got 3-4 weeks of practice time now, some with other teams. And that's about it. You just have this limited time. There's all kinds of stuff in the film room, but I've always hated that term mental reps. It's like, well, I'm on the sideline taking mental reps. Like that's great. I don't care. You need physical reps. You need to be out there running routes. You need to be blocking guys. You need to be deconstructing blocks. Whatever it is that your position needs to do, you need to be actually physically doing it. I mean, in my head, I can take all the mental reps Tua does. I can't do what Tua does. So, I hate that term. So it's one of those things, just that the practice and getting everything ironed out takes some time. And even with the best quarterbacks, I mean, you saw even with Tom Brady some. So whenever McDaniels left and there was other offensive coordinators, the offenses looked different and they weren't perfect initially. So that's kind of what we mean by that. I don't think it's going to come out and be rusty. I don't think he's going to go 10 for 28 or whatever that ridiculous stat line Tua had. It's going to be plays here and there that don't work exactly like they're drawn up. And that in a game like this, that could be the difference, because I think it is going to be a close contest. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
All right. Well, we're going to get up. We got about 15 minutes left, so I think there's time for us to be able to get in our picks for the game. And also, we're going to do we're rebranding. We're rebranding what we did last year. For those who are just tuning in for the first time, maybe I used to do this thing where I called it who is the overrated, the underrated, and the MVP, which Ron made it very abundantly clear he hated the whole way through. So, but he went through it. He's a good sport. Everybody, you can say whatever you want about Ron, but he is a good sport when it comes to this stuff. So, but we are rebranding it this year. Okay, Carlos Ortega, we'll go ahead and highlight that. Pass catching tight end, there is no positional group. The Chargers have a clear advantage over the Dolphins. Okay, you're talking about just straight up positional groups. What's the Chargers offensive line look like? I have to ask.
They have some issues too, but they have Slater, so they have some good. I think in
they have
in the middle, like guard, center, they're a little bit weaker. Tackle, they're better. They have a better running back group. They probably even still with David Long might have a better linebacker group. They have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. I'd say they have a better pass rush than we do. Even though we have Chubb and Jalen Phillips, it's a close second, but I think it's a little better.
What's the depth there?
Yeah, that I'm not sure because I'm not a Chargers fan. We have a better interior defensive line than they. I mean, we can go through this bit by bit, but I don't want to take up all the time with what you're about to say. I would say that the Dolphins can come to some close seconds in there, but the Chargers are a very talented team. The Chargers are just one of those teams that have absolutely not lived up, and I think Chargers fans would say this. They're a team that just have not lived up to the talent on the field, and that's why Staley had to make some changes. You know what I mean? And he got a new offensive coordinator, et cetera, and all that. They have not lived up to the talent on the field. Herbert has not lived up to his talent. It's just simple as that. So we can go blow by blow for all the units. The Chargers are just a team that haven't lived up to their talent. If all of a sudden week 1, we realize, oh, this is the year they're living up to their talent, like we might be in trouble. We just don't know though. We'll have to see.
All right.
But go ahead, Lewis. I'm sorry. Just wanted to kind of touch on that comment.
That's fine. So the rebranding that I was referring to is instead of just picking overrated, underrated, and MVP, because that's too much thinking, we are basically going to do the zero and the hero. How's that? Does that roll off the tongue a little bit better?
A zero and a hero. I like it.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to pick 2 players. Who's going to be the zero, who's going to be the hero. And this is for the Dolphins only. We're not saying that, the zero on the Chargers is going to, we're not doing that. We're not looking.
I do.
We're not
picking Chargers fans pick their zero.
Let the Chargers fans pick their zero and hero. So
exactly.
Mr. Caniff, you go first. Who is your zero and who is your hero for the Dolphins versus the Chargers in week 1?
Okie dokie. Here we go. My zero is going to be Durham Smythe. I think in that position in general, I think we've done a terrible job putting talent in that position. We have a tight end 2, and we have 3 practice squad guys. That's our tight end room. So I think what they're going to try and get are 2. Oh, we only have three tight ends. Sorry. I thought we added in a 4th tight end.
We did. We added Tyler Croft. He's number 3.
He's the 3rd.
Okay. Yeah. So we've done a terrible job there, but Smythe, I understand they're not going to ask a lot from the tight end, but even what they're going to ask, I just don't think they're going to get it, especially in this game. I just don't think they are. So as far as my hero goes, I know this is going to sound real weird and real funny. I think Savon Ahmed's going to have a really good game. And I know you're supposed to pick a guy that kind of comes out of nowhere. That's the guy that's going to come out of nowhere and have a good game. I just think that he is going to do extremely well in this game, be used way more than you think. I don't think they're ready to just give a lot to H. And I'm a big A-Chain guy. I am. I've been preaching about him since the day
Yeah,
we
you've been
drafted him,
preaching
right?
and talking
May,
about him
June,
up until
July, August. I have not stopped talking about him, but I said
you
week
did.
4,
You
week
stopped talking
5.
about him. You stopped talking about him for about a week and a half when the whole discussion about Jonathan Taylor started up, and then it was like Devon A-Chain. Who's that? I do not recall.
Well,
Who
plus
is
he got
Devon
hurt, and I'm
A-Chain?
concerned. I mean, I'm just concerned there. He's missed some time. He's a rookie. He's a little bit banged up. So, and I don't think Mostert's a guy that you can just give 20, 25 carries to. I think Ahmed's going to have a good game. I think they are going to commit to the run. I think they're going to have more success in that run. And I think Ahmed's going to have a bigger part in this offense than we would realize.
Who?
Savon Ahmed.
Ahmed.
Yeah, I saw the pronunciation
you
key.
gotta
Somebody put it in OnlyFins. I saw this pronunciation key, and I can't. I wish I could find it because it was hilarious.
You gotta put the phlegm in there.
According to the pronunciation key, yes, I am supposed to say Savon Ahmed. I just not trying to make fun of him. That's just how you're supposed to pronounce his name.
That's his name. Put the phlegm in there.
Durham Smythe, 5 catches, 50 yards, and 1 touchdown. Book it now. Okay, well, we'll see. I mean, if we could get that kind of production from Durham Smythe, I mean, we're fine. Like we're golden right there. Hey, I would be very happy with that, especially out of a lot of 11 personnel. That'd be fantastic.
Consider this: Tua's first completed pass in preseason was to who?
Durham Smythe. I was the one that pointed that out actually in the show a few weeks ago.
It is not out of the realm of the possible. So, Duke, who's your 0 and who's your hero?
Well, I'm looking at the depth chart at the moment, and I'm trying to think of a 0.
Well, the depth chart is garbage because Liam Eichenberg is still listed as left guard. So ignore that.
It doesn't count until tomorrow, I think.
I'm going to put him as the 0 just because I think he's the backup to Isaiah Wynn.
So he's the 0 on the basis of he's not going to play.
He's not going to be there. If I had to pick somebody that I think is going to play, man, it's so tough because I expect all these guys to have decent games. I don't think anybody's going to be just straight up terrible. And Ron kind of stole my thunder there, because I would say the same thing from I think the tight end group just is not going to produce a lot statistically. So I'm going to stick with Eichenberg as the 0. I think he's not.
It feels like a cop out, but I guess we'll.
Well,
it's week 1, Chris. We'll give it.
I want to stay with the hero group. With the hero, I'm going to stay the same group, and I'm going to say A-Chain. I think I'm going to pair him up with Braxton Berrios because I think we're going to see those guys used as underneath options quite a bit.
That's what we need to do.
And I think we're going to see a lot of screens. I think we're going to see a lot of short underneath stuff to kind of counteract some of this defensive game planning that they did last year. Essentially long handoff type passes, an extension of the running game. So I expect those guys, and as well as Ahmed, to have a bigger impact than expected in this particular matchup. If I had to pick an actual 0 that's not a cop-out, I'm going to say somebody on the defensive line. I think, and I don't mean this talent-wise, but I think that it's strength on strength. Their offensive line is good, and our defensive line is very good. So I think we might see a guy like Wilkins or Sealer or Davis play okay, but not up to the level we expect, just because they're going to be facing a much better opponent. So I think they'll hold their own in run defense. That's what I got.
All right, and I'm going to give my picks now. So my 0 is actually going to be one of the wide receiver group. I don't think Braxton Berrios makes much of an impact at all, to be perfectly honest, either as a returner or as a wide receiver. I've been saying it, and I think that, quite frankly, I was very underwhelmed with the third wide receiver competition, so to speak, this season. This whole preseason, this whole training camp, I just didn't feel like Braxton Berrios or Robbie Chosen, who is now on the practice squad again, or Cedric Wilson. None of those guys did anything that really wowed me per se. I was looking, if I had to pick somebody who I felt more comfortable with at this point, I'd honestly go with River Craycraft.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Dolphins would too, and I think the Dolphins proved that with their keeping him on the 53. Honestly, I think the Dolphins would agree with you, Lewis.
Well, they're going to start. They're going to start Braxton Berrios, and they're going to start Cedric Wilson first. It's not like Craycraft won the third wide receiver job. It's going to be those guys. But personally, I don't think Braxton Berrios is going to do a whole lot. I think if Tua is going to throw to anybody, it's going to be Jalen Waddle. It's going to be Tyreek Hill. He might throw it a couple of times to Durham Smythe just to mix it up. And I think he's going to get the ball to Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane and those guys in space just to be able to keep them on their toes. I don't think either Cedric Wilson or Braxton Berrios. Like I honestly want to pick 2 zeros just because neither of those guys do I expect to have much production out of them at all. As for my hero,
but before you go into that, one thing I will mention about River Craycraft is he was a practice squad call-up last season and almost immediately developed some chemistry with Tua. So Tua likes throwing to him. His first 2 catches for the Dolphins were touchdown passes. So I think that's a good option as a safety valve because he's not new. He's a guy that Tua trusts. So
he's the new Brian Hartline.
I still miss Trent Sherfield. I wish we could have kept him.
I
stopped complaining about that for a long time.
Listen,
but I'm still not happy about it.
Do you see a difference in between Trent Sherfield and River Craycraft? Be honest with me. Aside from how they look, what is the difference?
I liked having them both, but really that's not the question because we kept River Craycraft. The question is, do you see a difference between Trent Sherfield and Braxton Berrios? And the answer is huge difference. Because it's a huge difference in philosophy of what Miami wants to do this year. So we're going to see if that new philosophy pans out, at least for week 1. We'll see if the throwing it with Yak and trying to be more San Fran and less Miami in regards to the offense works for them. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not convinced it will, but we'll see.
And here's my hero. It's going to be Christian Wilkins. I know that Duke's saying that his strength on strength, they have a strong offensive line, but I'm thinking Christian Wilkins, he is going to be pissed off. He is going to be going out there with a chip on his shoulder. He's going to be saying to everybody out there, you didn't pay me. I'm the only one in my group who didn't get paid. And now I'm going to show you why you should have paid me before the season started, because now I'm going to absolutely wreck everybody. Just going back to last season, Christian Wilkins had 6 tackles, 3 assists, and a sack. And that was with Josh Boyer's defense. And Josh Boyer's defense wasn't a great defense. Okay. It just wasn't. I understand that there are people out there who
held its own in moments.
It held in moments.
The only reason we didn't get sliced and diced in the playoff game.
You can't hold your own in 10%, and then the rest of the 90% you get absolutely wrecked and saying, you get credit for those 10%. No, that's not how it works. You don't get to be.
It had an inclination to allow big plays. That was the number one problem with that style of defense. Not just Boyer, but Flores and even Bill Belichick. It allows for it. It begs for the offense to say, "I dare you to throw it deep on us." That's the weak spot where Fangio's defense is not going to really allow a lot of deep stuff. So that was the difference. And tough when you're trying to play when you're playing with cornerbacks off the street and Justin Bethel, who had played 60 snaps at cornerback in 4 years total, and then we had him play 60 snaps in a game. Little tough to manage with that defense, but he still kind of would hold true here and there. I'm not like a huge Boyer fan. It was time to move on for sure. I don't like that style defense at all. I'd rather have the Fangio style, but I'm just making a point there. That's all.
Okay, fine. You can make your point. But my point here is that Christian Wilkins is going to basically make it so that the Chargers are not going to be able to run the football.
I would love it. I hope you're right, man.
I'm sure that Austin Eckler will get his yards here and there. He'll probably get 60 yards rushing total on 16 carries or something like that. So I'm personally not at all concerned. I think that between Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer, the Chargers run game is going to be null. They'll have to do a bunch of screen passes to Austin Eckler to get some semblance of a run game. That they might actually get something going. But even then, if Christian Wilkins is in the vicinity, he will be near the play. He just will. That's just how good I feel like he is. He's going to wreck some people in this game. You guys watch. So as we count down to our final minutes here, let's get some actual picks in. Duke, I'll start with you this time first. Who's going to win? What's your score? What's going to happen?
Man.
You didn't come into this game already know what you were going to pick, Duke. You're not sure, are you?
Well, see, I tend to be one of those, like, if I pick against the Dolphins, they win. So it's going to be a close game. I'm going to say 24-21 Miami. I think there's just too much big play potential on Miami's offense that will counteract the defense. I think they'll get enough run game going. And I think there'll be some big moments from the Chargers offense. I think their defense, our defense will step up and hold them. So, yeah, 24-21 Miami.
Ron?
22-19 Chargers.
Okay.
For all the reasons I've said the entire show. I don't need to go into it all again.
Okay, fine. I personally am thinking that this game is going to be much more high scoring. I think that this game is going to come down to like field goals and whatnot. I think that this is going to be a game where it's like 33-28. But I do think that Miami comes out on top in this one. I think that the fact that Tua is more experienced in this offense, I feel like that Tyreek is more experienced in this offense. Jalen Waddle is more experienced in this offense. And as Duke pointed out, Justin Herbert is not experienced in his new offense. I think that that's going to be the difference maker. Yes, the Chargers have a lot of talent on offense and defense. Yes, so do the Dolphins. But I just feel like the one offense has actually been practicing in this offense for 2 years. Justin Herbert has not had any live snaps aside from practice, and I feel like that's going to be the difference maker. All right, so we're going to go ahead and call it here. Next week when we do Pulse of Fins Nation, we're going to be dissecting everything that happened in the game, which is kind of exciting. We're actually going to get to talk some real Dolphins football, something that actually happened, and we can go step by step, snap by snap, if we so desire. So it's going to be a lot of fun for everybody.
We're going to catch the three of us before you go. We're going to catch the three of us on the after game.
Oh yeah, we'll be doing post game shows. Absolutely,
we'll be doing post game plus whoever else. I mean, we might have 4, 5, 6 guys.
And I will be popping on pre-games as well. I'm going to be host. Well, I don't know if I'll be able to host. If it depends on what time they actually started, because I have to do church. I have the worship leader. I got to do church. So
yeah, but the game is not
at 11.
Yeah, but the game is 4:30 or whatever. So you're good.
The game's at 4:30. Okay.
And next Sunday's game is a Sunday night game. So
okay, so I'll be good. I can host pre-game.
You're covered with the Lord for at least the next 2 weeks.
All right, so good, perfect. So pre-game, post-game, I'll be hosting that. I don't know if Ron's going to be pre-game. I know it'll be post-game. Duke, are you going to?
I don't do pre-game, man.
Yeah, you going to do pre-game, Duke?
I don't do pre-game.
It depends on the time. I could probably stop in for a little bit. I have obligations this week from 4:30 to about 6, so it depends. If I can make it post game or not, simply because I will come in and start watching the recorded version, and I can fast forward through halftime, all the commercials. So I may be able to catch up by the end of the game. So hopefully I can step in, if not immediately, at some point during the show.
All right. Well, we'll appreciate you coming in, even if you didn't get to watch all of it, because, hey, just a little quick confession here. I didn't watch all of the game against that first preseason game either. So
I fell asleep the last 8 minutes. Woke up 30 seconds before the post-game show and had to fake my way through it. That won't happen to a regular season.
Don't expect to reach me, because I do not. My phone will be blowing up, so I will have my phone cut off.
Okay,
I do not want to be spoiled. So
I'm going to send a carrier pigeon to you and say score 7-3 right now. 3 minutes.
All the way up in that show.
By the time I get to get that post, it'll be the Patriots game. So
okay.
Nice.
All right. So everybody, thank you all so much for joining us. We do have more Dolphins content. I am about to go and do a Fins Nation recording with Ethan Skolnick. So that's going to be fun. You'll be hearing that show tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. for Fins Nation. I'm sure that Alex Dono and Troy Stratford will be doing the extra yard sometime this week. So make sure you're tuned in for that. And of course, pre-game, post-game, all week, all during the game stuff. So you have plenty of Dolphins content here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network to look forward to. Thank you to everybody who showed up, including Chargers fans. We do not dismiss anybody in this show. We are inclusive and welcoming to all. And so thank you for joining us. We will see you all next week for another episode of the Pulse of Fins Nation.